Hello friends, welcome to Edwiki Learning channel. Please do subscribe to get more updates on the DevOps concepts. This video is part of the full course AWS DevOps Practitioner training. Please do check the description below to get the link for the complete full course. Without further delay, let's get into the video. Thank you.
Welcome back team, and we'll continue our discussion. So how many of you now getting the confident that you can write some simple Python use case? If you get any requirement, right, at least on AWS side, at least confident level, right? Yes, somehow we can get through by looking into the documentation. Not really. So again, my goal is here uh, not to make you guys are understanding this particular program, right? Because there will be n number of different use cases, right? Understanding one simple program, or if you by heart it and execute it, it is working. No, that is not the goal, right? So the goal is or the way how I'm delivering this stuff, right, to make you guys are understanding the development practice, how we can get with doing this development strategy by doing back and forth with all the errors and documentation, how to rely on the documentation, and basically building some confidence on you that so tomorrow if any requirement comes in, yes, somehow we can do this by looking into the module documentation. I think it's all about the module documentation. Yes or no, guys? So identifying the right module name and understanding how the module works, then follow the module documentation to see the syntax, how to get them, and get the data and pass the data, right? We need to always see the data is in which format and see how to convert it into, right, and extract the data. Correct? That's a simple few steps that I have followed, and I wrote some beautiful code here. Now what to do with this code, guys? So let me try to execute the code one time. Okay, so let me see. Python and this is main.py, correct? Let me run the code. Talk to me over the chat window, guys. Okay, I think this is the error that we received yesterday, right? So I'm getting some error. I'm getting some exception basically, right? Initially it is printing some lines of data. It is currently processing the tag value is app server. Good. After that, I'm getting some exception here like this. Okay. So how do you get through this exception, guys? Like, how do you solve this problem, right? Of course, the one reason, one option is you go to this line by line error and see which file that it is complaining, see which line it is complaining. That's a one way to go. The other way to go with this, right? You start looking into this flow. Usually, this is the 54th line is the one which is getting executed. It is calling the main function. Then it is calling the get list function. The get list function is actually trying to give you the list of instance IDs that you are capturing here, correct? The get list function is actually doing some logic. It is reading the file, getting the logic, all these things, and finally you see it is actually returning some values, correct? So maybe now let me do some debug in terms of a function by function at least, whether this function is working fine or not, whether this function is returning my values correctly or not, correct? If it is returning the values, then most likely this function is looks good, right? Let me do some testing now. Let me see if I'm getting some return output or not, right? So did I enable the info logs? Yes, right? So what I do is logging dot info, and let me print this this particular variable, okay, just to see whether I have got some input or not. Okay, now if you look into this, How many of you are following with me? So currently I can see that currently it's processing the tag value app server. This line is printing properly, right? So let me go to that line. At least we will know that till that the code is working fine. So I think till this line, right? Till this line, the code is working fine. That is the confirmation for me at least, right? Because this logging statement is working fine, correct? Maybe after this line, something is happened. That means the 15th line is something, there is a problem. What is 15th line? The 15th line is actually getting the instance ID, correct? And this is the instance ID that I wanted to get on, correct? So I'm just giving the tag value and I'm expecting some response. Now the code will go to get instance, and this is where it is trying to do something, right? So here, here, so I wanted to get the instance IDs, and then I wanted to uh, I need to get the list of servers. Then I'm trying to get the servers here, right? And somewhere you see that you know, probably here I'm trying to do the comparison. That is how the flow is happening, right? So look like this get underscore instance is not working properly, it seems, right? And that's where it is giving some error. Okay, so let me look into the code. After yesterday's error, I'm just trying to see the debugging now only, guys. And somewhere you see that in get instance, and this is where it is complaining, right? Hey, this is where it is not able to give you the output properly. Yes, and what it is complaining. Okay, so something it's saying that the type error, the int object is not a callable. Okay, fine. So it is going to, I meant to say, once this function is called, we need to check the line by line if the code is working as expected. So this is to get the list EC2 instances list, and then the instance list here. Let me try to print this. Right? Am I really getting a instance from this input or not? Just trying to do some troubleshooting. It should be a logging.info, guys. I'm just going with print just to make it a little quicker. Let me go there one more time. Okay. Uh, Maybe I need to go a little slow. From the log, I think line number 26. Okay. Line number 26, get underscore instance function. Okay. And this is the line it is causing the issue. Okay. Maybe this is the point. Let me go to the code. Let me looking into line number 26, and this is the line that it is complaining. Why this line is complaining? It says that the list index is out of range. Okay, so then probably now I'm interested to see what will be the output of this variable, because if line number 26 is failing, then let me see what is the line number 25, because in the line number 25, whatever the uh, list of servers that I have captured here, that I have given as an input in my line number 26, right, to do the next level of processing, correct? So now I'm interested to see what is the value of this variable that I have collected, which I have given for my line number next line, right? So let me see this output, guys. So probably this is the debug line. So I'm just trying to print this line just to see what will happen. Let me execute the code one more time. I'm just trying to see the code behavior. Now let me see this one more time. Yes, you see now after this currently it's processing the tag value app server. Now this is the debug line. It is printing this line. That means it is confirming that till line number 26 the code is working fine. Right from this 27th line, right? This is where the code is failing. Okay. So now what is that I'm calling in the for loop? Under this EC2 instance list, under the reservations in the 0th list, the instances that I'm passing, correct? So under the reservations, nothing is there, right? Let me take this data, guys. This is the data that I'm giving for my for loop, correct? How many of you following me? Let me copy that. This is the data that I have given to my for loop. Let me copy that line, that output. Now let me see what it is actually. The reason why I'm going through this, right? I don't want to just go and tell some syntaxes. I'm showing you the real struggle of a developer, how we actually get through the errors and make the fixes, right? So let me take this data, stop seeing this ad, not interested. This is annoying, right? Thank you. Now let me do the format. So under this, right, in the reservations, I'm not getting any output, you see, nothing is there. So that is the reason it is not able to process, correct? Obviously. So I said that, hey, in the reservations, go to the list number 0, index number 0, then get the instances which are found in the instances list, right? That's the statement that I shown here. But when it is describing the instances, right, it is not able to execute this expression because nothing is there in the reservations section here, and obviously the for loop is failing because it's not able to process this exception or this expression, right? Why? There are no EC2 instances that are currently running, and obviously there is no data and it is not able to process this, right? So yesterday it was working because that time there were few servers in my AWS accounts, and it is able to get some servers and there is a real data and it is working fine. Even now, let me try to deploy some servers there. For example, I'm deploying the app server. Let me go and deploy at least one server for now, just to see the code behavior. So why I'm showing this, that means when you're developing the code, right, you need to check all the different possibilities when the code may fail, when the code may get success, and how to process the data, all these different use cases, right? So now I got one server, which is the app server label. Now let me go and run the same program again, right? So let me try to run the program one more time, right? Now you see that the program is actually proceeded. The instance ID is added to the list and I got some instance ID there. Now it is actually going for the stopping the server, and I'm getting this big output because I have made some print statements, right? So this time you see under the reservations, so I'm getting some data here and it will get hold of that instance ID. Finally, the instance is stopped. It is showing all these uh, um, print statements or the info statements because I have enabled the info logs, right? So that is what it is. That means what? The code is working fine, but when the servers are there, it is working. But when there are no servers matching to, right, then it is failing. Get me, guys? So we need to see those use cases as well. Then we need to adjust the code accordingly. Probably now you know that when the instance are empty, then this code will fail. So this is here. Now we need to add a one more line checking. If the list is empty, then don't proceed with the next level. Maybe you can put one more if statement. If this particular list is empty, right, just break from this loop through, like don't execute the below, just break, right? And if not, then execute the below program. You got me what I'm trying to? I'm not really implementing that solution now, guys, because we already spent a lot of time in implementing a lot of solutions, but I'm just trying to give you some thoughts here. That's how we need to, right? So put some condition there, and if it is empty, don't do that. If not, just process it. That way your program will never fail tomorrow if the servers are 0 or servers are 100. In both cases the program works. That's how we need to tackle the situations, guys. Sometimes it's difficult to have that thought process. What will happen if the servers are 0? You'll not get to that kind of the mindset, right? Sometimes when you are doing the development, it's okay. But when you get into this kind of a trouble, lot of times in real time as well, today the developer says that, hey, I written the code for stopping the server, it's working fine, and you deploy it. Deploy in the sense you make it real time running. After 1 month, the code will fail. Getting me? Why? After 1 month, maybe there are no servers in the matching list. Then that is failing. That use case you didn't know before when you have developed the code. Then when you got that kind of a situation, then the code is failing. You go back to there and try to add that use case, add a if condition, then the code will be working. Again, after a month, definitely it will get fail. Why it is failing? Maybe there is some other situation. Maybe the servers are there, but there is no server with the app server. Got me? Maybe that is another use case. In that situation, the code may fail in different places. Again, you go there and add one more if condition, right? That's how you need to keep on doing some improvements, guys. Agree with me? That's how it works. Okay. So for now, the code is working fine. Looks good. Now, what I do is probably when the servers are being get stopped, right? Rather me printing these lines in my console output like this, right? So currently it is showing that the instance ID is stopped, right? Rather printing in the console where I'm running the program, it's a nice idea to send this statement to a email. Agree with me? Let's say when my program is executed, when it is actually stopping the servers, please send a email saying that, hey, this program is executed and this is the servers are stopped. It's nice idea, right? That way we don't need to worry about all this. Maybe when you are running the program, you are stopping the servers, your manager wanted to know the status, just put a email statements. It will just send a mail to that guys and they will know that what's happening, right? It's a nice idea. So how to send a alerts now, right? So since I'm working through the AWS, right, you all know that the AWS has a service called SNS, Simple Notification Service, which will take care of delivering the messages to the subscribers, correct? Maybe now we need to write a simple program to invoke that SNS concept and send a mail. Isn't it good, guys? There is another add-on best practice that I can add to my current program. So if you wanted to, let's say your manager is now asking that, hey, the program is looks good, now can you add a email notification, right? So now we need to do little explore there. Okay, let's see how to do that, right? So get into the Boto 3 documentation and look for the SNS services. The way how you have written a code for EC2 related, same way get into SNS documentation. See how to get the SNS client, correct? Like previously I got my EC2 client. This time I'm getting my SNS client. So import Boto 3, then just call the SNS client. So in this program, the Boto 3 is already imported. Now I wanted to call the SNS, right? I'll collect it I'll collect this as SNS variable or object, right? Now what next? So these are the available methods, right, in order to work with the SNS. Now, what is that I'm looking for, guys? You can see here, create a topic, delete endpoint, delete a topic, all this. My requirement is I wanted to publish a message to my topic, correct? Usually, you will not create a topic from here. Who will create a topic, guys? Or from where will you be creating a topics in general? Of course, your Python is supporting to create a topic. You see here, create topic also there. You can create it. Even you can create EC2 server also using Python. But will you be using Python to create a EC2 servers? Not a best practice, right? Probably you use a Terraform in order to create an infrastructure, correct? Use the Python for automation. That way, I'm not doing creating a topics or creating EC2 servers using Python, though it is supported. This is really a tricky or not straightforward activity. So the Terraform is very easy to manage, right? For now, I wanted to publish a message. Somewhere I can see a publish here. Now get into the documentation here and see the example syntax. How are you going to publish a message? Now see what and all different arguments can be given and the possible values and the value type. And it says that the value to be a string, the value to be a binary or whatever it is. Look through this documentation and just supply the values. That's it. For now, let me take this example documentation syntax. I'll copy this. I'll come here. Now we know that any use case will be a function, right? So what I do is probably I will be declaring another function. So I'll say a publish SNS. This is the function name. Call the one more function and put that syntax inside the function, right? So this will be SNS because I got my SNS it into a variable called SNS. SNS dot publish, and in these braces now we need to give the input arguments, right? So now you need to give what is the topic ARN that you wanted to publish and what is the message that you wanted to publish, what is the subject that you wanted to publish, so on, so on, so on, so on. Not all the parameters are mandatory, right? Only few are mandatory, right? So I'm removing the unwanted stuff for now. Maybe I don't want to give all this information. Right, so sorry, maybe I'll just give only the subject and the message that I wanted to. Then I don't need a phone number, right? Maybe I need to tell to which topic I need to send a message. The target ARN also not needed, correct? In general, this is the AWS skill, not a Python skill, just to decide how to give the values. Now you give the message here. Let's say instance, okay, and specify the instance ID. Maybe I'll say instance ID, and I need to specify the instance ID there, okay, is now stopped, and I wanted to display the instance ID on the placeholder, and this is the instance, right? And the subject, maybe I'll use the same thing as a subject also, or maybe I'll say that uh, this is a alert. It's up to you how you wanted to. This is the alert. Instance is stopped, something like this, right? So since I'm expecting the instance ID has to be printed here, then I need this instance details should be sent by someone whoever is calling this function. Let me accept that as an argument so that this will be printing here. Now here I'm looking for the topic ARN, to which topic it has to publish the details. So let me go to AWS, let me go to SNS. Just get the topic there, right? And get the topic ARN, and this is the topic ARN. Copy that. So again, rather you are getting the topic ARN from here, you can even get the topic ARN from your code also, right? Maybe first you need to call the like EC2 servers case, right? Let's say initially I have shown you how to specify the instance ID manually, right? Later I have shown you ask the Python only, hey, go to AWS, get the instances list and pick up the ID, correct? I can do like here also. Hey Python, go to AWS, get the SNS topics list, then pick up the topic ARN from there. You can do that, right? But I'm just making shorter now rather going in that route because we already familiar at least some information. So this is the topic, this is the message, this is the subject I wanted to write, and this is my function name. So now I need to call this function, right? So who has to call this function? My function is ready basically, right? Which will take care of publishing a message. Who is calling the function? Maybe who is stopping guys? You see, this is the stop logic, right? This is where exactly the instances are being stopped, correct? So this is the one. If the state is stopped, then I'm printing this statement, right? Maybe this is the place where I need to call my function. So now you specify this here, correct? So whenever the instance is stopped, then I'm printing some message as well as I'm calling my publish SNS function as well. So when I'm calling my function, I will be passing the instance ID as well, which instance ID that it has to send as a calling argument. That's it. Now this function will be called. That will take care of publishing a message to the topic. The topic will take care of sending to the subscribers. All that will happen. At least for this topic, let's see. Yes, this is the email ID that is subscribed. Now let me run this program, guys. So just to get some real insight, I'm going to EC2 again because currently the server is stopped, right? It will not stop again. So I'll bring up the server, then I will execute the code again just to see my code is working as expected. This is the server. Let me start the server. Yeah, it is coming up. Now let me try to execute this code. Initially, right, when you are actually doing this kind of a new development, right? So maybe you don't know whether this SNS function is being called or not. Let's say you are not getting email, right? If you are not getting email, how do you troubleshoot it? You don't know whether this function is executed or not. What exactly is problem, correct? My recommendation is in every function you made one liner. Let's say logging dot info, right? This is the just beginners whoever is trying to write a programs initially. So SNS function is called. Just put this kind of information messages. That way you will know that if this line is printed, definitely this function is called. Then you can easily troubleshoot whether you need to look at here or somewhere else. Got me? Like that, if you add this liner in every function, maybe that makes your life easier. For now, let me execute this code. We'll see the result. Actually, it is I think it is waiting for the server to be stopped because we have asked the Python to, hey, go on of while loop, correct? I think somewhere we have written the while loop, right? Where is that? You see here while true, it is waiting for the server to be stopped. Now you see that the SNS function is actually called. That's a confirmation that the SNS function is called. Now let me see if I have received an email. Interesting. You see that I got one message. The alert instance is stopped. That is my subject, right? Which you have given in your program. Go inside and you see you got one message mail body. And this is exactly what you have been described. Instance ID, the ID is mentioned here, is now stopped. Isn't it sounds cool, guys? We are getting to see it actually working product. So that is how you will be getting some requirement in real time. Hey, can you write a small script which will take care of this kind of automations? Because your manager is end of the day is interested to see the mails. Hey, I wanted to see what's happening, right? He will not go and look into all these things, what's happening behind the screen. That's it. Are we good with this? Now, are we done with this program? Maybe not. Again, now your manager says that no one will satisfy, right? Your manager will never appreciate you sometimes, will never be satisfied with your work. Now he'll ask you, hey, looks good, but for any reason, if it is not able to stop the server, stopping is failed for some reason, can also send a mail, correct? So now we need to add one more condition somewhere. If it is failing, your code is failed for any reason, then also you need to send a mail. So all those things we need to keep on improving the stuff, guys, right? Well, that's okay. Now, once you have written a beautiful program like that, then as I said, right, I don't want it to be running manually. That is where we need to get hold of the Lambda. Let me call out what is Lambda and how the Lambda works. I think I have some presentation prepared for that. Let me make use of that presentation. Let me go for here. What is Lambda? Okay. So basically you write a code in your favorite program language which is supported by the Lambda. Then you give your code to the Lambda function. Hey Lambda, please can you execute this code, right? The you know why I'm getting S3 bucket there. That's okay. So S3 bucket, just ignore this, guys. So you can create a triggers, because whenever you give the code to the Lambda, right, you need to also tell to Lambda that when the code has to be executed, correct? So that is the trigger. So in the trigger section, you define the triggers who will tell to Lambda and when to execute. There are different triggers are available as you see this list, and the the event bits rules or the CloudWatch event rules. So this is one of the trigger which will tell that the schedule base. Yesterday I've shown you the schedule, right? You can tell the schedule every Friday it has to be, or alternate weeks or whatever it is, right? Just put some fixed schedule, and on that schedule it will be sending the notification to Lambda. The Lambda will go and execute it. Not only that fixed schedule, there are few other sources also there, and you see the S3 as a source, SNS as a source, application load balance as a source, and there are few other guys. So all these are the sources who will be informing to Lambda. The Lambda will go and execute the code when he hear the trigger from these triggers, right? When the code is being executed, it will use the program whatever you have been asked for. Is it Python program or Java or Node.js, whatever. At the time of executing, it is going to give the required processor and memory capacity for it to run, because if the code has to be run, it need a processor and memory, right? The Lambda will supply the required compute requirements and the code will be executed with the help of the processor and memory capacity that is being allotted. Correct. If you are running the code in your machine is utilized. But if you are giving the code to Lambda, there should be some processor and memory, right? It is going to allocate that. Then whatever the output that it is printing, right? Let's say you have some print statements, you have some info logs, right? Those messages will be get printed in the CloudWatch log section. If you are running the code, the logs will be printed in your system itself, right? But if it is running in the Lambda, those statements will be printing in the CloudWatch logs, right? And the output can be I mean to say the statements will be printed in the CloudWatch logs, but the destination can be any of other AWS service as well. You may be having a question now, right? How come that destination can be a S3 bucket, EC2 or any other? Let me call out like this. I'll give you a simple use case. I'll give you a requirement, guys. The requirement is, hey, someone is actually uploading a file to the S3 bucket. Okay, someone is uploading the file to the S3 bucket. You all know, right? Usually when, let's say there is a web application is running, right? Like a dynamic web application, like a youtube.com as an example, right? The user has logged into his YouTube account in the website and he is uploading a video. Let's say he is uploading a video of 10 GB. Okay, he's uploading a video of 10 GB, right? That video will come to a S3 bucket, correct? So if I am keeping that video with a 10 GB in actual size, maybe I need to pay more in my S3 consumption, correct? Probably when someone is uploading a file with a 10 GB, I don't want to store the file with a 10 GB in size. Maybe I need to compress it, correct? I need to compress it. I need to zip it. Sometimes, the user is uploading a file with a higher resolution, maybe the HD quality video that he is uploading, right? If I want to process that HD file, right, the processing, I mean to say the bandwidth would be more required. There will be a slowness, right? The users cannot play a video with a higher resolution content whenever the internet is very slow, correct? There are multiple reasons, right? Probably what YouTube wanted to do, right? If anyone is uploading a video with a bigger resolution, a higher resolution, I wanted to do, I wanted to reduce the resolution and store it in my S3 bucket. Getting me, guys? I'm just throwing some ideas because we can't get into all this in implementation, right? So when someone is uploading a video in a one-liner, when someone is uploading the video, the company or the YouTube folks is trying to convert that video into their own format. It could be a reducing the size, it could be reducing the resolution, it could be matching with their respective players where they wanted to play or any other. Maybe it could be adding one I would say watermark in the video for patent rights. I meant to say for copyrights so that no one else can use the same video. I just wanted to add a label of my company to every video somewhere. Those things will happen behind the screen, right? So these are the customizations, right? So who will do all those things? So when someone is uploading a video, definitely the video will come to S3 bucket. Once you get a video to the S3 bucket, you use that S3 bucket as a trigger and tell to S3 bucket that, hey S3, whenever you get a new video uploaded, that means whenever you get a create event, sorry, create object is happened on the S3 bucket, can you go and inform to Lambda, right? So that way your S3 bucket is acting as a trigger which will be informing to Lambda whenever there is a new file is uploaded. Getting my, guys? Then in your Lambda, you write a code. The code will take care of, could be a resize, could be adding a watermark, could be maybe downsizing the resolution, or could be any other. Whatever the changes that you wanted to do, you do the changes by using the Python program. Then this program will be uploading that target file, correct? Once you have done some changes, then a new file will be generated, right, out of that, right? Let's say if you are giving the 10 GB file, when you zip it, I'll get a 1 GB file, correct? That's output file. So that output file, I wanted to send it to another S3 bucket. That will become the destination for me. Make sense? So one S3 bucket is acting as a trigger to call my Lambda. The Lambda will process the files. Then it is going to put that output files into another S3 bucket. That's one use case. Right? So let me give you one more use case. I'm just trying to throw some thought process now, where and all the Python will be used, or where and all Lambda will be used. The thought process is like this, right? As of now, you are using the CloudWatch event as a input, sorry, as a trigger telling that, hey, every Friday at 5 p.m., please go and inform to Lambda. In the Lambda, you have written a code which is actually stopping the server. And your code is executed. It is trying to stop the server. For some reason, the server is not being stopped. Okay. For some reason, the server is not being stopped. Then you are sending the alert in SNS. Hey, the server is not being stopped. Maybe if the servers are not being stopped, right? Maybe it has to do something else. Okay. Maybe there is another Python program which will take care of whenever the servers are not being stopped, right? So please tell me, I'll take care of how to stop them. Maybe it will go and execute. Maybe it will logging into the EC2 server. It will stop some services. It will clean up something. Then it will try to shut down the server, whatever. Some troubleshooting has to be done, right? If the server is not able to stop it for some reason. So let's say one Lambda function is for stopping the server. If the server is not stopped, it is sending the SNS. You take a second Lambda function. For that second Lambda function, you use SNS as a trigger. What will happen now? Whenever that SNS will receive the message saying that the server is not being stopped, the SNS will go and inform to a second Lambda saying that, hey, this is what I have received. The second Lambda, you have a different code which will take care of how to troubleshoot it, or how to fix it, how to log into the server and do something, whatever, right? Then it will execute the code and do the necessary outputting for you. Make sense? Let's say I have a application load balancer as a trigger. Let's say in the application load balancer, right, for some reason the target health checks are failing. There is a target group. The target group has some health checks, right? The instance health checks. Whenever the application load balancer targets are unhealthy, then I wanted to do something. Okay, take your load balancer as a trigger and configure that, hey, whenever something is unhealthy instance, please send a alert to Lambda. Lambda will execute the code and it will fix the problem. That's how the things will work out, guys. Maybe in going in very reality, right? Let's say I have two EC2 servers in my load balancer. One EC2 server is currently unhealthy. For some reason, it is not working as expected. Now, whenever the server is unhealthy, I configure that trigger it. Then it will go and inform to Lambda, hey, there is one server unhealthy. Lambda, you write a code in such a way that it will go and stop the EC2 server. Sorry, it will go and terminate EC2 server. Whichever the server is unhealthy for some reason, maybe your Lambda will go and terminate a server. Once the server is terminated, you know, right, the auto scaling will be there, which will take care of creating a one more server just to meet the minimum requirement, correct? So that's how I'm automatically fixing the problems whenever some unhealthy servers in my load balancer. So that is how the workflow will happen. I'm just throwing some thought process, guys, right? because we can't get to know all these different projects developed and implemented, right? Make sense? Like that, once you know this is how it is working, tomorrow when you get into, right, the real time, based on the requirement, we need to think what can be a trigger, what can be a destination output, and how my program supposed to be, how to handle the situation. That's how we'll be keep on doing some automation strategies with the help of this. Are we good with this? If this is the case, right, if this is the case, okay, let me show you how the Lambda will be there. Before that, usually when you configure the Lambda, at the time of the code is being executed, how much memory and the processor is being spent, right, in executing the code. For that duration only, AWS is going to calculate the pricing. If your Python program is not executed, they are not going to charge anything. And when your Lambda is trying to interact with all these different services, let's say S3 has to trigger the Lambda, Lambda has to upload the file to S3, another S3 bucket. If it has to do all this, obviously, right, one service wanted to access the other service, you need to give the permission. So we need to have the IAM role created, give the access to the respective services, whichever the service that we are expecting to be interacted with the Lambda, then attach the IAM role to the Lambda, then Lambda will gain the permission and it will the whole work things will work out, right? So being said that, now if I go to the Lambda, right? So simply I'll go and create a Lambda function. I wanted to write a program from scratch, and this is testing. My Lambda runtime is Python. I'm writing the code in the Python. This is architecture is like AMD architecture. And you see in the permission section, this is where you need to give the IAM role, right? So create a role or you use the existing role. Then it is asking you the drop down. Hey, tell me which IAM role that it has to, right? So before you come to this level, definitely you need to create a IAM role that you wanted to use for your Lambda, correct? So let's say I will go to IAM. In the IAM, I'll just go to the role section. I'll go to create a role, and the trusted entity will be AWS service. Now you select Lambda from the list, correct? Because I'm trying to attach a role to the Lambda. The Lambda will become the trusted entity. Go to next. You give the permission based on which permission that you wanted to give, right? So just come down, go to next. So this is a custom Lambda role, some name, create a role. Then you come back here and refresh. You should be seeing your Lambda role here. Then attach the role so that it will get the permissions. Then create a role, create a function. Once you create a Lambda function, it will give you the code place where you can put your Python code. You see, this is how the Python code. You keep the Python code here and add a trigger here. Come to the trigger and you see all the different triggers here, right? If you wanted to give the schedule based triggers, let's say every Friday I wanted to run the code, every Monday, maybe every day, once in a month. If you have that kind of the requirement, go with the event bridge, which is the CloudWatch event. which will help you to create a new rule. And here we need to specify the schedule expression, and you follow the cron schedule expression. If you want, you can just open this documentation to see the syntax, how we need to compose the statements. We'll get some examples here, right? Yeah, you will see some examples here, right? So it will explain you. You see the examples. So this particular syntax will be to run the program at 10 a.m. every day, and you see run the program at 12:15 p.m. every day. Like that, some syntaxes are there. We need to follow this pattern and give the pattern here, right? And we can see some examples here. So then on that particular time, right, it is going to trigger the Lambda. The Lambda will be get executed with whatever the code that we have written. So simple, right? But but let's say when you are adding the trigger as a CloudWatch event, that is so simple. You add a trigger like every Friday, it will execute the Lambda. In the Lambda, whatever the code that you given, that code will be executed and the output will come. But let's say I'm giving S3 as a trigger, saying in this S3 bucket, if there is a new file is uploaded, then please execute my Lambda, right? If that is the requirement. Let's say I'll choose S3 here in this case, right? Now you specify the bucket name, which bucket should be a trigger, correct? Let's say I will choose the bucket called, probably I'll just go to this file, ed media data 01, one of the bucket. Is that not healthy? Let me take at shop web data. Yeah. So let me take this bucket name and the event type when the Lambda has to be triggered, right? So my requirement is you see here, maybe a put object. What is put means? Put means someone is actually uploading a file, right? So when there is a put event is happened, then the Lambda has to be triggered. Just select that, right? You can see all the different events as well, right? When the files are being deleted permanently, then I wanted to trigger the Lambda, and you can see the different requirements as well here. For now, let me go with the put. If someone is uploading a file, the Lambda has to be called, and uh, this event should be applied for all the buckets in the S3, sorry, all the objects in the S3, or a specific. You can even go with the prefix and suffix as well. Let's say in the bucket, if someone is uploading under the images folder, then only call the Lambda, not everywhere. So if you want that kind of the requirement, you can put all these. For now, let it be acknowledge and add the trigger. Now you see that the S3 is added as a trigger, and you see the triggers below, and this is the details. When the object is created, it is going to call the Lambda function, and this is the bucket which is configured as a trigger. Now, as I see a question in the chat window, guys, do you think S3 will access the Lambda? For what reason? Like the use case, we need to look after the use case. For what reason S3 will be accessing the Lambda? Maybe I need to put in other way. S3 should invoke the Lambda. That is the right terminology. Rather access, I would say that S3 is now invoking the Lambda. Why? The S3 is acting as a trigger. The S3 should have the permission to execute the Lambda. Even that case, the permission should be given at a Lambda side, not at a S3 side. In Lambda, I need to tell that, hey Lambda, if S3 is going to execute your function, you please allow the S3. So like that, you need to give that permission at a Lambda only, who can execute the Lambda function. Getting me? So in the IAM role that you given to the Lambda, right, there itself we need to make the right permissions. In that, if you say, hey, don't take S3 as a invoker, then S3 is trying to execute the Lambda and Lambda will not execute. That's how we need to tweak the permissions. Well, for now, let me come to the S3 bucket. Maybe I'll try to upload one simple file. Just try to upload one file. Maybe I'll just upload this file just to see what's happened. One file is uploaded. Okay. So as per my requirement, like when the file is uploaded, right, it has to trigger a event to the Lambda, right? Then the Lambda should execute, correct? So come to Lambda. So when the S3 is calling the Lambda, right? In the Lambda, whatever the code that is there currently, that code has to be executed, correct? As of now, there is a simple code which is actually printing some hello. It's just printing some hello. This is sample code. That's okay. Let me see what's happening. I will go to the monitor tab here just to see what's happening. Right, I wanted to see the Lambda metrics since last 3 hours. So it will tell you how many times your Lambda is invoked, how many times the Lambda function is executed, what time it is executed. Once the code is executed, how much duration the code is executed, right? The Lambda is successful or the failed. Let's say the code is success or fail. We can see that information. Maybe those are the at least useful information. If it is generating any output that is being printed, you can see them it in the log section. You go to the CloudWatch logs, just open that. That will be redirecting to the CloudWatch logs where the statements will be get printed. While it is, yeah, it's open. You see somewhere I can see AWS Lambda test and all. So this UI is still working. Okay. So here you can see something called log stream, and this is where you can see some file. Just click on that. Now you should be able to see some statements here. So this is where you will get to see the output guys. And somewhere you can see that, right, duration is 1.69 milliseconds. Like that, it will tell you that when the code is executed, how much time that it is executed, and that is a build duration. So AWS is going to charge for this 1.69 milliseconds of duration. That's how it works, right? That means you don't need to reserve any capacity, right? Whenever the code has to be executed, the Lambda will give the processor and memory and get it executed and take the billing for that duration. That's where Lambda is called as a serverless architecture. Why serverless? Am I really creating a server and keeping my server up and running to run my code? No, right? You give the code whenever you need it, it will just run it. So that is called as a serverless architecture. There is a server behind the screen, but AWS will take care of. For your perspective, there is no server, right, to run the code. So this is called as a serverless architecture. Let me come back here and let me refresh one more time. Now you see that the count, you see, one time the Lambda function is invoked, you see, and this is the duration and you see that the program is currently successful. That's how you can see some metrics, right? Definitely there will be some output here as well. Let me that's okay. Maybe we are not really printing something there. That's okay. Let me come back here again. Now the biggest question for you guys, right? Let's say here now you are writing a simple program which will be taking care of processing the file that is uploaded to the S3 bucket, correct? In this context, what is our goal, guys? Why I added S3 as a trigger? If someone has uploaded a file to the S3, maybe I wanted to process that file, correct? When I say process the file, maybe the code that you have written here, this code should be able to, you know, zip the file, compress the file, reduce the quality, add a watermark. Agree with me? That is what is it mean by processing the file, correct? The question for you now, when you have written a Python program here to process the content or a file, how do you know which file that you wanted to process, correct? Is it the right question? Right? We don't know which file is uploaded to the S3 bucket, right? How do you get that file data, first of all, correct? You should know the file data, right, to process it. So when you add S3 as a trigger, it's S3 responsibility to give you some input to the Lambda. It will just give some input to the Lambda. And help me, guys, if you are able to hear me and able to see my screen. Thank you. And again, I'm actually trying to throw some ideas here or the thought process here. That way you will get to know the different use cases, because we can't implement all these use cases in one session just like that. It takes hell amount of time, right? So once we know some of the AWS basics, because I delivered one use case, now I'm just talking about the use cases. Okay, well, so the S3 will give the information to the Lambda. Hey Lambda, you please execute the code, and this is the input. The S3 will take care of giving the input, like maybe the bucket name or some other information. So in your program, it's your responsibility to capture the input that is given by the S3, then you process it. Make sense? So when it is executing the Python program here, right, lambda underscore handler is the function that is already defined here, and which is taking some arguments as an input. So whatever the event that you see, right, this is the one which is actually collecting the input that is given by your triggers. Even we are doing the same thing, right? When I'm writing the Python program, you see, when someone is calling the Python program, whatever the argument that is passed, I'm collecting it. Then that collected data I'm processing inside my code, correct? Inside my function. Same way here as well. Whatever is given by the S3 as an input argument, that is collected by the event. Now you process this event. So what I do is, inside your code, now what you do is print event. So first you print this event, then you will get to know what kind of the data that you have received from S3. Then you will know how to process the data, correct? At least the format or whatever it is. So let me see what will be the output of this print statement when someone is uploading a S3 bucket. Whenever you are doing some changes to the Python program in this, right, always you need to click on deploy. Then only the changes will be saved. Then only it will update the latest changes. Now I'm actually printing my event. Why my Python program to be inside the Lambda handler function only? Because if you do little scroll down, here you said that, hey, whenever S3 is calling the Lambda, right, which code has to be executed? If you have some 100 functions, let's say, which function should get start with, correct? Here is here is the default. Lambda underscore handler is the function name, right? That function has to be executed. That is how the handlers are already defined. That is the reason you need to keep the code inside the lambda underscore handler function only. Then only your code will be executed. If your code is in a different function name, it will not be called just like that. This is the function that is going to be invoked and get the event and print the event. Let me see what will be the output in this case. I'm just trying to upload one other file. Maybe let me try to do the same. Upload is completed. Let me come back. Go to monitor section just to see that my lambda is actually triggered. It may take maybe a second. We'll just wait for one other metric data here. It is still doing. So the event that you have printed, right, that should be coming into your CloudWatch logs. So you can look at the logs to see the data. Sorry. Let me look for last 5 minutes. It's not done anything, right? So we need to wait for some time. So once you know that how in which format the S3 is sending the data, once you see that in your CloudWatch logs, then you see how to write a program by taking that S3 input data. Just parse the data, convert the list into dictionary, dictionary into list, whatever. Then try to see how to modify your file, all those things. So at this time, I'm not worrying about the business logic. I'm telling that whenever you add something as a trigger that will give some data, you capture the data, then you see what to do with that data based on the requirement. Why it is taking so much time? Not really. Let me try to upload the file again. I just have uploaded another file. That is how we need to do the development, guys, and the use cases. Okay, we'll wait for some time for this to happen. Okay, looks good. Now I can see there is one occurrence, and this is successful. Now let me go back to event section and refresh. Sorry, I think I need to come to one other level. You see, there is a one other log stream is created. So it may be having the data. Yeah, looks good. You see now the sum output is printed here, guys. You see the output here. This is the event. Copy this event data, which is in the JSON format. Right now, you come to the JSON viewer and see the format. This is what the Lambda has received from your S3. Okay. Now you look into this input data that you received from S3 bucket. So it is saying that if you look at these, right, just go down. Okay. So you see that The request is came from S3 bucket. This is your S3 bucket name, correct? And come down, you see, actually this is the event that for some time back I uploaded one Kubernetes badge, right? That image, you see. So it is telling that, hey, the Lambda has received a trigger from this bucket, and this is the file that is actually uploaded, and this is the current size, and that's it. Are you good with this? Once you know this information, all what you need to know is the bucket name and the file name, correct? Once you know that, you just take this file and compress it, process it, and put it into another bucket. Whatever the business logic that you have, whatever the requirement that you have, you do it for this file. Now you need to know how to write a Python program to parse this dictionary, right? Get these values, go into the dictionary, right? Then go with your business logic. Are we good with this? Right? That's how it works. It could be any trigger, so we need to follow the same approach, guys. Now, once you know the whole stuff, right? As of now, I created a Lambda using the UI, right? When it comes to the real time, I want this to be get deployed using Terraform, correct? So now we need to write a Terraform code for this, right? So let me show you a simple Terraform to deploy the Lambda. I'm not going to write the code from scratch now because we already know some of the basics how to write a Terraform code, right? So I'll just get from my existing list. I think there is some example already there here. So what I do is I'll just clone this repository. I'll give this link, guys, for you guys, for you as well, for doing the practice. So I think for now, I'm just downloading the code, okay? Yeah. So somewhere in the Lambda folder, now you see I have some code. This is my Terraform code, okay? So lambda.tf is one of the Terraform file, and as usual, you see that it is a provider block, right? And this is the data block. The type is archive file, in the sense the Python program that I wanted to give to my Lambda, correct? The Python program is there in the file called here. You see the index.py. So this is where I have some Python program. Okay. Let it be whatever the Python program. Based on your requirement, you kept some Python program in a file, right? So you keep your Python program in one file. That file has to be zipped, right? That file has to be compressed. So this is the data block which will be taking your index.py, in this case the Python program, take the Python file and compress that Python file it into a zip format. That's what I did it. So this is the source from where it has to get the Python file. This is the output, like it has to create a zip file. The type is zip. So why? We need to give the file as a zip format to the Lambda. The Lambda will know how to work it out. So first I created a zip file out of the Python program that I have here. Then as usual, I am deploying my Lambda function as part of the resource block. The resource, the type is AWS Lambda function, right? Now you define the file name. You see which file that it has to use to deploy the code. This is the file, right? Data dot archive file dot your name dot output file. So this is the file. This is the zip file that I wanted to upload. Specify the file name, give the Lambda function name, specify the role name, which role that it has to be attached, specify the handler. Sometime back I have shown you this handler as well, right? And specify which Python runtime the code is written, right? So now you see the role.tf. This is where I have created a IAM role. This role I'm actually attaching to my Lambda. The terraform.tf files, if we have any variables, variable.tf, simple file. You just need to deploy this. Let me do this. Let's say a Terraform init. I'm just trying to initialize this a Terraform project, which will take care of two things: deploy the Lambda and upload the Python program as well, right? We have the Python program as well here. That's the tricky part, guys. Okay, let's say today we started with a Python concept, right? Now where we have ended up? We ended up with we need a Python skill, we need a AWS skill, we need a Lambda skill, we need a Terraform skill just to complete this particular assignment, correct? Or this particular use case. That is where all the things will be linked up or together. That's where the people will be expecting some kind of the multi-skill, right? So that's where then only you can deliver a proper use case. Well, so that's okay. Now I'll do Terraform apply. Right, I'm just trying to deploy this. You can add you can add all the triggers as well, guys. Sorry for the context, right? All the triggers. Let's say you need a S3 as a trigger, you need a CloudWatch event as a trigger. Anything can be happened from your Terraform side as well. That's AWS concept anyway. So it is done. Let me come back to AWS. Let me refresh this. Now you see I got one other Lambda function is deployed, some description, and you see the package is in GIF format. And just go inside the Lambda function, just come down and you see that you will be getting your Python code here. You see this is the Python code, right, that I have uploaded. It is actually showing as a file format only. Though you given in a GIF format, the Python will, sorry, Lambda will take care of how to unzip it and show you to in a file format here. That's it, done. Maybe if you go to the configure section and look into the permissions here, you can see the role as well. This is the role which is configured. One last thing, at least the important, if you go to the general configuration, right, you see that the timeout currently by default 1 minute. That means what? In general, by default, your program will be get executed maximum of 1 minute by default. Let's say you have written a very big program which will take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to complete. No, it won't work here because default the timeout is 1 minute. If your program is taking more than 1 minute to complete, then it will not work. Let's say in your Python program, I have asked it to wait for, right? Maybe if I go for my actual code where I'm stopping the server as an example, here I'm actually waiting, right? Let's say you stop the server is taking at least 3 minutes to stop. Your Python program has to wait for 3 minutes, right? But the Lambda says your program can run at maximum of 1 minute only, so it will fail. So you can edit it and can increase this timeout, but you can increase maximum of 15 minutes only as of today. If you go for 20 minutes, let's say, hey Python, sorry, hey Lambda, can you run the program for 20 minutes? No, it won't work. 15 minutes is the maximum that the AWS is allowing as of today. So any Python any program that takes less than 15 minutes of time execution, better you go with Lambda. If you think that my code will take a hour to hour, it will not work out. So for simple automation solutions, probably the Python is the best. How the things are going, guys? I think that's the story for today. Right, so that's the story for today. If any questions, do let me know, or else we are good for today. Right, today mostly I have given you some thought process or some use cases where it is going to be used, how it is going to be used, what will be, right, the development practice, all these things. Right, as said, I will be definitely giving all the links to you guys to download my code. Are we good with this?
Sir, suppose, hello, sir, am I
Yes.
audible? Yeah.
Yes.
Say, for example, we have kept the Python program which we have written for stopping the server in Lambda function. Then we need to add destination as EC2, right? So, is that
Okay, not
correct?
really, not really. You are not adding the destination anywhere, right? So in my presentation, I shown you that the destination section here just to understand that, right? The use cases, right? Let's say the S3 can add as a trigger and your Python program will be executed. It will upload the file it into another S3 bucket. Just to understand the use case, right? I said S3 will be a destination for you. You are not going to add anywhere. In your Python program, what and all services that you are using, all those will become the destination. That's what it is. Got me? You don't need to add EC2 as a destination explicitly. No. In your Python program, if it is actually handling with the EC2 related, then EC2 will become the destination for the Lambda, right? This portion you are not explicitly defining or implementing.
Okay.
So
Uh,
the reason why I called out this in the presentation, because based on that we need to give the IAM role. Let's say in your code, if you are writing the code to stop the server, the corresponding IAM role that you have given should have the permission to stop the server. Then only it will work, or else it will not, right? That's the reason I mentioned that, right? What and all resources that you are using in your Python program, those will be considered as a destination services. You include them in your IAM roles, then only it will work. But there's no option like adding the destination going into your uh, AWS. And you see here, you don't need to do this step explicitly like this. If it is taken care in your Python, that will be good enough.
okay. So say for example, I want my server to be stopped when it reaches or when it receives certain amount of load on it. So in that case, the trigger point will be easy to write.
Not really, right? So let's say whenever my EC2 instance CPU utilization is 90%, then the server has to be stopped. Let's say that is a requirement,
Yeah.
right? So see which one will be the right trigger for this. Maybe you are writing the Python program, but see the trigger here,
Oh, cloud watch it.
right?
Okay.
So if I do little scroll down, right? So most likely there is no matching compatibility here. Okay, you are not getting a right option here. Okay, so yeah, do we have EC2? Not really. Okay, that's okay. So now the answer for you, right? There is SNS, right? Take the SNS. How it works in your CloudWatch, right? In your CloudWatch, you create an alarm. right? You create an alarm saying that, hey, whenever the utilization is more than 80%, please trigger the alarm, correct? The alarm destination can be a notification, right? That means whenever the usage is more than 90%, please send a alert to the SNS topic. That we can configure, right? So that you will get an email.
Yes.
When the alarm is triggering to the SNS, now you use that SNS as a trigger in your Lambda. Make sense? You take the SNS as a trigger, specify the SNS topic. Whenever the CloudWatch alarm is sending the notification to the SNS, when the usage is more, the SNS will take care of calling the Lambda, and SNS will give the necessary information to the Lambda. Your program will pick up the data and it will do the next level of steps.
Okay. So with the available the options in
Correct.
adding the triggers, we need to connect it to our requirement, right?
That's
So
true.
that is the case.
Because
Okay.
only these are the triggers that the AWS is supporting as of today. So we need to see how to make sense out of it based on your own use case.
Okay. So I think that can be done through application load balancer as well. So where we can uh, add some metrics for that in the CloudWatch, and that can be made to invoke Lambda function. So can we?
You just go to the application load balancer as a trigger. Now it will tell you the details. Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'm going to say what and all possible options are there in using the load balancer as a trigger. Like, right? We can't
Yeah.
assume that it will
Yeah.
be supporting for all. So we need to come here
Yeah.
and see the options, which options are
Mhm.
there. Based on that, we can configure the trigger.
Okay. But the condition is like a Lambda function should have a role to access whatever the
Yes,
service we have requested for.
yes,
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
cool. If any questions, do let me know, guys, or else good for today. All right, then. So we'll catch up tomorrow. Thank you.